Hello students, how are you? This is economics lesson video for grade 11, presented by me, Mr. Futumirmias. It is for term 1, week 3 in lesson 2. In today's lesson, we are going to deal with the concept of law of demand. Students, before we go to the main part of today's session, let us briefly revise the previous one. In the previous session, we have dealt with the theory of demand, and we try to see the meaning of demand and the way that we are going to represent demand. In economics, the term demand is different from that of the ordinary meaning. Demand refers to the amount of commodity which an individual buyer is willing and able to buy at a given price during a given period of time. Here, there are three major concepts are there: ability to pay for the good by household, willingness of the household, and there should be availability of the good itself. These are the three major concepts that deals with the term demand: ability, willingness, and availability of the good. When all these three conditions are fulfilled, we refer that is demand. And demand can be also represented by demand schedule, demand curve, and demand function. Demand schedule is a tabular statement that states the different quantities of a commodity that would be demanded at different price. And demand curve is a curve or a graphic representation of demand, individual demand and market demand. Demand function is a functional relationship between demand and factors. In the demand schedule, there is individual demand and market demand. The individual demand is refers to the individual quantities demanded by a household, individual household. And the market demand or the market demand schedule represents the different quantities of a commodity demanded by different households or consumers in the market. The same is true for demand curve, individual demand curve and market demand curve. In the demand function, we try to see the various factors which affect the amount of commodity which is demanded. Then we have the price of the commodity itself as a major determinant factor, and price of substitute goods, price of complementary goods, income of consumer, and taste and preference of consumers. All these are factors that affect or influence the amount of commodity which a consumer demand. This is what we try to see in brief in the previous session. Law of demand. Law of demand expresses the functional relationship between the price of a commodity and its quantity demand. Price and quantity demand are inversely related, assuming that other factors remain constant. Other factors mean factors other than price: income of consumer, taste and preference, price of substitute goods, price of complementary goods. All these factors will remain constant, and the relation between the price of the commodity itself and the quantity demand is inverse. They are inverse related. This is what the law of demand states: the functional relationship between price and quantity demand, and the relationship is inverse. It means that more of a commodity is demanded when the price falls and less of its demanded when the price rises. Assumptions of the law of demand. Law of demand depends on the basic assumptions of other things being equal or ceteris paribus. By other things, we mean factors other than price, which affect demand for a commodity. In the law of demand, there should be no change in any of the following determinants. Price of related good doesn't change, taste and preference of consumers, income of consumers, the size of the population, distribution of income and wealth should be equal. There is no change all in these factors. The only thing that changes is the price of the commodity. These are factors other than price. Exceptions to the law of demand. There are some situations when the law of demand does not operate. With an increase in price, more quantity of a commodity is purchased, and the lower the price, the lower will be the amount of commodity purchased. In this situation, demand curve is an upward sloping. The higher the price, the higher will be the quantity demanded. The lower the price, the lower will be the quantity demanded. But this is not the case in the law of demand. The higher the price, there should be the lower the amount of commodity which is demanded or purchased. There is inverse relationship. The higher the price, the lower will be the quantity demanded. But these are exceptions. The higher the price, the higher will be the quantity demanded. This time, we're going to have an upward sloping demand curve. These are known as exceptions to the law of demand. Main exceptions to the law of demand are the case of given goods, prestige goods, expectation of people about the future, and necessities. Given goods are special type of inferior goods and they have low price range. Whenever there is an increase in the price of given goods, consumers will purchase them. There will be also high demand. With an increase in the price of the commodities, the demand also increases because these type of goods have low price range and it doesn't affect the purchasing power of households. The other exceptional case is the prestige goods. These are goods that consumers measure the utility or the satisfaction of the commodity with its price. The higher the price, the higher will be the satisfaction level. For example, diamond is one of best example of prestige goods. When it has high price, it gives high prestige value for consumers. The higher the price, the higher will be the demand or the higher will be the prestige value. So in this case, the higher the price, the higher will be the quantity demand. This is the case that violates the law of demand. Expectation of people about the future. This is the case, for example, when there is an increase in the price of the commodity at the current time, at present, consumers will purchase that particular commodity at high quantity, even if there is an increase in the price of the commodity, because they might afraid that there will be much higher price in the future. This is one case that violates the law of demand. Whenever there is an increase in the price of the commodity, consumers are purchasing that particular commodity with high quantity. Why? Because they are afraid that there will be much higher price in the future. And the reverse is again true. When there is a decrease in the price of the commodity, consumers will not purchase the product even if it has low price. Why? Because they expect that there will be much lower price in the future. These are the case that violates the law of demand. In the case of necessities, these are goods which are essential for survival. Whatever the price increases, consumers will not lower their purchase. They also purchase the product with high quantity because it is essential for survival. In the case of necessities, the higher the price, the higher will be the demand for such products. So, in the case of given goods, prestige good, expectation of people about the future, and necessities, these are the conditions that the law of demand is going to be violated. Why does the demand curve slope downward? There are several reasons for the inverse relationship between quantity demand and price of a commodity. The reasons are the law of diminishing marginal utility, income effect, substitution effect, changing the number of consumers, and different use of a commodity. In the case of law of diminishing marginal utility, when you consume a particular commodity successively, the additional satisfaction that you gain from the product will become decreased. At this time, whenever there is a high price for the product, lesser quantity is going to be purchased by the consumers because the marginal satisfaction, the marginal utility that we gain from the product becomes decreasing. At this time, the higher the price, we will be forced to purchase low amount of quantity or commodity. In the case of income effect, whenever the price is low, we can purchase more quantities or more commodities. Whenever the price is very high, we are going to be forced to purchase a smaller amount of quantity or a commodity. For example, assume that you have got 10 and 100 birr. With this 100 birr, when the price of the commodity is around 25, we will be able to purchase 4 units of a commodity. With this 100 birr, if the price of the commodity becomes 50, we will be forced to purchase only 2 units of a commodity. This is what means income effect. There is no change in the amount of income that we are going to spend for the purchase of the commodity. But simply with the price of the commodity increase or decrease, that will allow us to purchase more commodity or less quantity of a commodity. If the lower the price, the higher will be the amount of commodity that we are going to purchase. But the higher the income, the higher the price, the lower will be the amount of commodity that we are going to purchase. In case of substitution effect, when the price of a commodity falls, it becomes relatively cheaper than that of its substitute products. So people who are consuming the other goods would now start to consume the commodity whose price has fallen. And as a result, a demand increases. It creates inverse relationship between the product and its price. This increase in demand is called the substitution effect of a price change. Change in the number of consumers, a decrease in the price of the commodity increase the number of households who demand the product in the market, and the rise in the price of the commodity reduces the number of households that are demand the product. This creates inverse relationship or a downward sloping demand curve. Different uses of a commodity. When there is a low price for the product, the demand is going to be very high because at low price the product can be used for different purposes, whenever there is low price. But when the price increases, we are going to focus only its essential use of a commodity. So the amount of commodity that we are going to purchase will become now decreases. We are not going to use the product for different purposes. We are going to stick with its essential use whenever there is high price. But when there is low price, we purchase the product and use that product for different purposes. The lower the price, the higher will be the quantity demanded. Why? Because the product is going to be used for different purposes. The higher the price, the lower will be the amount of commodity that we are going to purchase. We are going to focus only on its essential use of the commodity. The different use of a product can also be a reason for the downward sloping of the demand curve. A best example for this is given on your textbook about the use of electricity. The lower the price, we can purchase high amount of electricity for various purposes. But when there is high price, we only use the electricity for lighting purpose. That is what means different use of a commodity. Okay, students, it's all about for today. To briefly highlight what we try to see in today's session, we dealt with the concepts of law of demand. Law of demand is the functional relationship between price of a commodity and its quantity demand. Price and demand are inversely related in this case. Other factors remain constant, assuming that other factors remain constant. Price and quantity demand are inversely related, which means the higher the price, the lower will be the quantity demanded. And the lower the price, the higher will be the quantity demanded. This is what the law of demand states. And there are assumptions. In the assumptions, factors other than price are remain constant. What are these factors? Factors like price of related goods, the likes of substitute goods or complementary goods, taste and preference of consumers remain also constant, income of consumer, the size of population, distribution of income and wealth. All these factors will remain constant for the applicability of the law of demand. And we try to see exceptions to the law of demand. These are conditions that violates the law of demand. The law of demand states that there is inverse relationship and we have a negatively sloped demand curve. But in the case of exceptions, we're gonna have an upward sloping demand curve, which means whenever there is an increase in the price of a commodity, there is also increase in demand. That gives us an upward sloping demand curve. And this condition occurs in the case of given goods, prestige goods, expectation of people about the future, and in the case of necessities. Given goods are special type of inferior goods which have low price. Wherever there is an increase in the price of such type of commodities, their demand will not decrease. Consumers will purchase those type of goods without affecting their purchasing power, even if there is an increase in price. That gives us an upward sloping demand curve. And again, in the case of prestige goods, a product which their value is measured with their price. The higher the price, the higher will be the demand. Expectation of people about the future, they expect that there will be much higher price in the future, and they purchase the commodity with a high quantity or high amount, even if there is an increase in price. Or when there is a low price, people expect that there will be much lower price in the future, and they purchase also decreases. Again, this creates a positive relationship between quantity demand and price. In the case of necessities, the same thing also happens. Whenever there is an increase in price of a commodity, people or households consume the product at high amount because necessities are essential for survival. In these cases, we're gonna have a positively sloped demand curve. That's why we say exceptions to the law of demand. Then we try to see why we have a downward sloping demand curve. We try to reason out by listing the major points. The law of diminishing marginality is one of the reason. Income effect, substitution effect, changing the number of consumers, and different use of a commodity. All these are the major factors for the downward sloping of the demand curve. That's all what we try to see in today's short lesson video. As usual, try to read your textbook in order to develop the knowledge or the information that we get from this short lesson video. We finalize today's lesson with the following exercise. As usual, do this exercise carefully on your exercise book. Until we meet in the next lesson video, goodbye.